to Prescott Talks, brought to you by Prescott E-News. I'm your host, Brooks Compton, and today our special guest is Ted Gambogi, running for the Prescott City Council, 4-year term. Ted, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brooks. Pleasure to be here.
Well, why don't we just get straight into it with your interview? You've been out collecting signatures.
Yeah.
What have you learned from that experience, and what's on the mind of the voters?
Well, first of all, it was fun. In this election cycle, we had to collect 20% more petitions in 33% less time. And we had snow, we had rain, but it allowed us to get out to the residents. And I learned a few things. For example, some people just won't sign a signature. I guess that's a pox on both our houses. Some are very partisan. They wouldn't sign a signature if you were a Democrat, or they wouldn't sign a signature if you were a Republican, even though it's a nonpartisan race. And then some spent a lot of time. They gave us what was on the top of their mind, and they interrogated the living daylights out of us to learn more about Ted Gambogi and get an idea where he's going to stand on issues. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, approximately 3,000 of those people who signed petitions didn't have that opportunity because 2 of the candidates spent money to get a collection firm out of Phoenix to get those signatures. And as a result, those people never got to see the position of the candidate nor express their thoughts top of mind.
So some of your competitors paid for signature gathering. You actually went and met the voters.
Yep. It's hard work, and city council is hard work. Yeah.
Different from some of the other candidates running for the Prescott City Council, you've actually spent some time on various boards and commissions with the city. How do you feel that will help you in your position at the City Council if you're fortunate enough to be elected?
Let's pick a sports example. Let's say Major League Baseball. In Major League Baseball, they don't go to BlackRock or IBM to look for the next manager. You need to know how to build consensus. You need how to manage a team. But you also need to know how to play the game. And mm-hmm. So I've spent 4 or 5, I started off in IDA, and then I became planning commissioner, and then became vice chair of the planning commission. And right now we're working on the 2025 general plan. I'm chair of that. And then the mayor asked me to serve on the committee to rewrite the city charter. What you learn in those committees is how to learn to work with staff. In a planning commission, we might get a packet, maybe an inch thick, that requires us to read maps and topographical maps. We go out to the job site to see the elevation, see the landscape, see what the impact in traffic is. It's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Now, all that work that the planning commission does turns around, goes to the city council, and they still have to do the same amount of work. Because if you're going to be led by facts, you got to plow through the facts, and you got to talk to people, and you got to be able to work with people. That's like learning to play the game, because it's important that you be able to relate to everybody.
So those experiences would help you on the city council because you have some of the insight already needed to do the job.
You know where the door is, you know where the chair is, yeah.
Okay. Well, what were some of the toughest issues that you've dealt with on the planning commission or other boards that you've been on at the city?
There's a few, and some of these are, you might use the term third rail or a dog whistle because it generates a lot of skepticism, one of which is affordable housing. You know, we have a real economic challenge in Prescott. Housing prices are expensive. It's expensive to live here because it's a great place and everybody wants to live here. Mm-hmm. But we also need teachers, and we need policemen, and we need firefighters. So you go back to the 2005 general plan, it called for affordable housing. That's been tough to put in. Now, recently, Clark Tenney came with a proposal up at Taylor Hicks School to put affordable housing in on the school property that would be dedicated to teachers and policemen. That's the first success that we've had. Another one is how we go about things. Like, I'm going to go back to affordable housing. One time when I was generating interest on the general plan, I went to our Frontier Rotary. And Ken Lane from Waters Gardens said, you know, our problem here today is what? He said, we don't have enough good doctors. I can relate to that. He said, you know the reason why we don't have good doctors? I know. He said, because the schools are deteriorating and the doctors won't send their kids to these schools. I said, well, I heard that too. He said, you know why we don't have good schools? I said, no, because we can't recruit and keep good teachers because it's too expensive to live here. That's why we need affordable housing. Now, I tell that story because there's a nugget of problem solving in there. See, taken by itself, affordable housing is a dog whistle, but as a element of a solution to a bigger problem, it works very well. The airport was a very contentious issue. We had 6 contentious meetings. There were name calling and there was booing in the council chambers. A lot of mistruths. And the thing that concerned me, and one of the reasons I'm looking to run for city council, is what I saw in those meetings were people acting on some information, not all the information, on some facts, but not all the facts. And it broke my heart to see residents out in the audience live in a state of fear because someone had convinced them that the sky was falling.
Well, that's why you're here at Prescott Talks, to let the voters know what's actually happening.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of in your time on the Planning Commission and those various boards, your accomplishments?
I'd have to say that same, the airport AVO.
Okay.
When we start off, it looked pretty dismal, and there was so much information out there. Now, one of the things that's important to me is to follow the facts. Now, even when you follow the facts, you can talk to, quote, experts. The experts won't agree. So you have to get facts from all the sources you can, find out where the gaps are, and then realize where the residents are, because they're part of the solution. And then when you do that, you get to a possible solution that may not make everybody happy. I remember when we were working on the Dells, and someone got up and said, this is a win-win situation. And I said, I beg to differ. This is a situation where both sides gave up something so we could come to a common agreement. Those are good solutions because you can't always have a win-win solution.
Well, given the contentiousness of some of the issues you've spoken of today, what would make you get into this race? Why are you running for city council?
Well, because you need to chase the facts. And that's a lot of hard work. And that's the hard work that we've done on the Planning Commission, the hard work that we've done on the general plan. It's consensus building. You got to take time so people can see all the facts. And I believe that rational people presented with all the facts will come to a rational solution, even if they don't agree with the final verdict. At least we do a good job of communicating why we made the decision we did.
What do you see as some of the upcoming challenges that you can use that consensus building?
Well, one of the things about being in the Planning Commission, and one of the reasons I'm running, is because on the Planning Commission, we see now or have rendered decisions on issues that are going to be in front of the City Council later this year or next year. So what are some of the hot buttons? Well, of course, the airport's still a hot button because that has to go to City Council. Another hot button is the Sundog Connector. That generates a whole lot of interest. And that requires a whole lot of analysis because sometimes we do ourselves a disservice by oversimplifying a situation. The airport was an example of oversimplifying a situation. And of course, the whole idea of what I've heard from the residents when I was collecting petitions is growth and water. Those are big, hot topic issues. And in the case of water, everybody has staked out their position. And so it's important for someone to go in and chase the facts and understand the situation. You'll hear people say, we're out of water. And other people have said, we got plenty of water. Those are the opinions of people that either have vested interests or are experts. But there's a simple formula that you can use that I won't go into detail in this interview that, with regards to what we have, what we use, what's the cushion, and what's the average use. And it tells you, you can do the formula and you can tell what the build out can be.
Well, Ted, sounds like you obviously have the experience to do the job. What makes you different than the other candidates?
Well, I guess it goes back to some of my corporate and engineering experience and the experience on the commission, the general plan, and the committee. Is we can't take the position of a sponsor. We have to take the position of every resident. And just about every resident is a stakeholder. When we evaluate something in the Planning Commission, we go out and notify stakeholders that a meeting is coming. But let's take the airport. Those are people within a certain radius of the airport. But I contend the stakeholder in the airport is some guy up in Chino that works at the airport, or some person in Prescott Valley that is part of the flight school, or the airport has sold tickets out of Prescott as far down as the outlet mall.
Okay.
So whether you
Anthem.
live in Anthem, thank you. Whether you live in Hacienda, whether you live in Forest Trails, whether you live at the ranch, whether you live on Yavapai Hills, you are a stakeholder in the airport. And the issues that are coming in front of us today or in the future, where everybody is a stakeholder in that decision.
Well, since you've presented us with some of your ideas and your experiences, why don't you tell us a little bit about Ted Gambogi and how you became a resident here in Prescott?
I'd love to. Let's see. I got my degree in aerospace engineering and economics from Rutgers. There wasn't any market for aerospace engineers when I graduated. Now, I had worked heavy construction in Philadelphia to work my way through school. So I went to work for Caterpillar, which just goes to show you that life is what happens in between plans. So I never became an aerospace engineer, but with Caterpillar, I traveled the world. I think I lived in 7 states. I lived in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and then later I lived in Singapore. And I was a sales manager in Singapore. And my wife of almost 15 years now was the office manager in Thailand. So this August, we will be married 15 years.
Well, what brought you to Prescott?
Well, that's another funny story. I wanted to put a plug in for Rutgers. Rutgers was the team, along with Princeton, that first created football back in 1869. And I think Rutgers is the only two of that group, only one of that group that has never won a national championship. So, okay, back to how we get to Prescott. Well, when I moved back from Singapore, and my wife and I got married, I told her, I said, I'm not going to retire in Peoria, Illinois, not to be confused with Peoria, Arizona. So I took her to Florida. And we went to Disney World, and I said, what do you think? She says, I don't like it. Now, I'm surprised. I thought Florida was the closest thing to Bangkok, Thailand, in terms of you got oceans, you got humidity, it's warm. She says, I don't like hot and humid. And then I got to thinking. My first rep assignment was Albuquerque, New Mexico, about a mile high. A lot of my time in Asia on the second tour of duty was in Kunming, China, which is about a mile high. And I thought, I know a town that's just about a mile high. I'll take her there. So we brought her to Prescott, and she has just loved us. She just sang at the funeral we attended at Sacred Heart Church. She sings in the Una Voce choir that's got a concert, I think, the 27th at St. Luke's Church and the 30th at the Elk Theater. She just loves Prescott, and we just love it too. We've been here a decade, and this is where we're going to call it quits.
Well, great. Well, Ted, thank you for coming in today and speaking with us here at Prescott Talks. And to the viewers, thank you for watching. And this is going to be an ongoing series, speaking with all the Prescott City Council candidates. And once again, thank you for watching. I'm your host, Brooks Compton.